Today I'm joined by Tim Rarick from the USA, and we're having a discussion on the importance, particularly on men, fathers and daughter relationships. Tim is a professor in family studies and child development at Brigham Young University in Idaho and serves on the board of health and welfare in the state of Idaho. He has spoken on family-related topics in Asia, Central America, Europe, all over the US, and several times on the topic of father-daughter relationships at the United Nations in New York City. Tim and his wife have been married for 19 years, have one son and 3 daughters. So you're a very busy man, Tim. Got your hands full.
Yes, actually, we just had our 20th anniversary, so I need to update that.
You do. Well, congratulations. And 3 girls will keep you on your toes as well.
Yes, yes, indeed.
Which I love, because when I've heard you speak over the years, you get very emotional, and this topic is really real to you and important. So thank you for joining us today. Now, both of us recently spoke at the Global Summit to End Sexual Exploitation, and we hear many amazing sessions, but I'm always, every time I hear you, I'm just reignited with the importance of father-daughter relationships. And you actually said that, you called dads the absent superheroes in the battle against sexual exploitation. I mean, that's a huge call. Why do you make a statement like that?
Well, because if you look at single parent families across the globe, not just the United States, it's mothers are doing the lion's share. So fatherlessness is much more rampant than motherlessness. And fathers what have got the message, unfortunately, that they're the lesser parent, that they're maybe a babysitter, or they're just, they're nice but not necessary. And so I think that message is being pushed in a lot of different realms, one of them being the media, one of them, well, there's a lot of them. And so they wield I call it a superpower, because fathers bring a specific gifts to the table that mothers don't, and vice versa. They're equal, they're both essential, but they're different. Mm-hmm. And I kind of view it as a superhero who's still hasn't figured out those powers are lying dormant, mm-hmm. because they don't believe in them and they haven't cultivated them. So the daughters and the sons really need that. And our world is suffering because of it. It's driving so many social problems, including sexual exploitation, or especially.
So just talk us through what are some of the problems, particularly around girls, that an absent father causes.
Oh, boy. Well, I guess to talk about that, so specifically about the daddy-daughter relationship. So when you compare daughters, in the research, when you compare daughters who are raised with loving, involved, respectful dads versus daughters who didn't get that, whether it's due to, usually it's due to divorce, but it's I guess there's several different causes, but the fatherless girls tend to be more overly dependent on men, because girls are born, I call this daddy void, or this daddy hunger, this father need, that sons and daughters have, but daughters especially have. And when that is not filled, one of the outcomes for these daughters is that they become overly dependent on men, because dad sets the foundational relationship for all future male relationships, meaning for the daughter. He's the opposite sex kind of entry point. He's the introduction to it. And if that doesn't go right, if that need doesn't go away, she will just fill it with artificial or toxic or unhealthy ways of approaching. Now, it's not guaranteed. It's just much, much more likely. So not being overly dependent on, or being overly dependent on men, she's more likely to abuse drugs and alcohol. She's more likely to be imprisoned. And that's true for fathers and sons on drugs and alcohol and imprisonment. But actually, research shows that dads have the bigger impact on daughters' academic and professional attainment and success than moms do. She's much less likely to be raped or sexually abused or sexually exploited. She's much less likely to develop an eating disorder and have body image issues. Self-esteem. Dad has tremendous impact. And all these things you can probably see overlap as I talk through them, or picture there's overlap between self-esteem, body image, eating disorders, romantic relationships with men. So that's just a snapshot of what dads can do, or the lack thereof, the damage they can do.
Yeah.
I don't know if that...
Look, that's huge. It's ginormous. And I was just watching a talk you did about 4 years ago at the Global Summit. Might have been when we were in Florida. And I remember being there. And you were talking about, I think it was a former sex worker, was telling you that she wanted to dance for her father when she was young. And her father never paid any attention to her. So when she grew older, she decided she'd dance for men and get paid for. So, you know, let's talk about some of the positives. So just a father watching his daughter dance could stop her going into the sex industry? Is that what you would say?
Well, that's an oversimplification, but
It sure is.
It has less to do with watching her dance and more to do with giving unconditional attention, affection, both physical and emotional affection. As I mentioned, I have 3 daughters. One of them in particular really, they all respond to love and affection. So I got home from work today, for example, and my oldest daughter, who's 14, and, you know, she's in the midst of puberty and all of that. I have to keep reminding myself that she needs extra special attention from me, because if she doesn't, then she's gonna be like, she'll feel down about herself, and she'll feel like, she may do things to try to get boys' attention that's not in the development of healthy relationships. And so I got home and I said to her, her name's Molly, and I said, Molly, I haven't had my hug yet. And she said, well, I got to go to the restroom. So I'm like, okay, I'll wait. I didn't stand outside the door, but she came out, gave me a hug. Last night, I should say, there's a beautiful song, and I think I quote it, not every time when I speak on father-daughters, but a lot, and I may have done it when the time you watch. John Mayer wrote a Grammy Award-winning song called Daughters. And I've actually got my daughter Molly really into John Mayer, and I didn't mean to, but I play guitar, and I really respect his guitar playing and his songwriting, even though he's had a couple songs that do objectify women. That song is beautiful, and that song was on, it was last night. And she said, Dad, and this gets into the dancing thing. She said, Dad, now when a boy dances with me, am I supposed to? And I said, stop right there. I'm coming over there. We danced for about 5 minutes, and we had fun together. And the daughters feel a sense of safety and security, and that Dad has always got my back, and that there's good men out there who aren't going to take advantage of me. And Dad can also help them see what their value and worth is. And when there's toxic men that come along and jerks, they can, you're not worth my time. My daddy has taught me that I'm a princess, not in a spoiled brat way, but I was born to be a queen, and my dad has taught me that. So it's not so much about the dance so much as it is about all those other factors that make up who she is and help her see her value and her worth. Dancing is just one of the great avenues for that. And it's more of the attention that she receives. Not attention and spoiled attention, but authentic, true, caring love. So
no, that's brilliant.
I'm not really good with short answers.
Look, it's great because not everyone fully understands the importance. And I've been really blessed to have an amazing father in my life, and who's probably shown too much attention. No, he gives a lot of great attention to me, my sister and siblings. So, but we're, me, your daughter, we're a minority to have healthy fathers in our life. And so I've heard you say that if there isn't a father, we need to find another male. I mean, in a world like this, where do we find them? And how do you bring that into that girl's life without it being weird or wonky?
That's a good question. And what makes this even trickier is, the way that men are portrayed now in media, and fathers are, not just in commercials and advertisements, but in movies. I'm all for, and when I speak at the United Nations, it's almost always, I think it was once, it was not the Commission on the Status of Women, but all the other dozen times I've spoken there, it's been on the Commission on the Status of Women, which is promoting gender equality and women empowerment. So I always say, look, I am all about women empowerment. I'm all about gender equality. But if it's at the expense of men, that is not, by stepping on somebody else to elevate yourself is bullying. That's not true equality. So to get men involved who are not fathers, we have got to stop trying to, I think, strengthen women at the expense of men, or turning, if I can push one person down, then it elevates me. That is just going to create, I think, more awkwardness between the two sexes, and you're going to have less men who are going to be willing to step up because of the awkwardness, or maybe this is kind of creepy. So first and foremost, I tell mothers, look for good men that you trust. They could be uncles, they could be grandparents, they could be neighbors, but make sure you get to know them well enough to trust them. And you're not asking this guy to come over and dance with your daughter. You're asking them, could you, and it's a sacred trust to say, could you play a more fatherly figure role in my daughter's life, in my son's life? And articulate what that means. Articulate your boundaries. And you want to do it gradually. You don't just say, could you be a father figure, and then take them on daddy-daughter dates. You may not be ready for that. There's a lot of really good men out there who I think just need the opportunity, who need the invitation, and we need to trust them more. And maybe they just need a little bit of guidance. So I know I've had many, many students who have been quite resilient because other men, and some of them were religious, ecclesiastical leaders, pastors, bishops, things like that. They stepped in and became that fatherly role. In fact, since you're part of a Christian movement, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure
So
is.
then I can bring this in without worrying, because normally I'm speaking in a secular setting. So I find it quite instructive and interesting, and I don't think it's by chance that many women I've spoken with who've gotten out of the porn industry, or even women who've been sex trafficked, and not all of them, but many of them found a father figure in Jesus Christ. And that is the man that became a father figure to them. And then they were able to find men who were like him, because nobody's exactly like him. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So I think religion plays a strong role in this. And so when we have messages in society that try to down religion or downplay it or try to extinguish it, I think, that is one of the great moralizing, value teaching institutions that really helps men become a lot less toxic and harness their superpower. It's not the only institution that does it, but it can do it really well.
Absolutely. Yep. No, I agree.
One more thing I'll say on that, and that is, I think it's a YouTube channel I mentioned in my last presentation. You may have saw it for the one that we just did online. There's I think it's called Ask Dad. I can't remember the exact title of it, and I used it in my presentation.
Yes.
But
Yes.
It's Dad, How Do I? And it's Rob Kenny. And he's one of many people online who are really being father figures. And as I read the comments, in fact, I've got a few right here. When the people who watch it, these are coming from daughters and sons who are grown now. Some of them are teenagers. And so here's one teenager. They wrote, their boyfriend said, come here. And they said, Dad, hold on. My dad's teaching me how to hang a shelf. So they can't stop watching it. It's just, and one person is, why am I crying about a video on how to hang a shelf? Because this guy is just warm. It's genuine. He has no agenda other than, you know what? I was raised without a father. I know what it's like. But now that I'm a dad, if you don't have any father figure in your life, use me and I'll teach you how to do some basic stuff, teach you some basic life lessons. It's not creepy. He's not asking for anything. So there's a lot of ways to go about this.
Absolutely. No, I think so. And I think we need to be more intentional in seeing it happen in our cities. Another comment that you made in your talk, which again has just interested me, you stated the father-daughter relationship buffers a man from porn as he starts to understand the sanctity of womanhood. Can you explain? I just love that, but I need so much more explanation in it.
Well, I guess maybe help illustrate with a story. I remember when my son was born, and we finally got to leave the hospital. It was only a few days, and he was in the back seat. It was the first time my wife and I had a third member of our family. and there was this very delicate infant in the back seat. And I remember saying to myself, I am never driving fast again. Now, that promise to myself lasted maybe a week or less. But then when I got a daughter, I remember it changed something in me. And research shows that fathers, if they allow it, are changed by the presence of their daughters. They start to see that, and I asked if there's some men who are struggling with battling pornography addictions and objectifying women. Once I teach them the research on this, if they are fathers, it's really easy to tap into that father-daughter bone a little bit, into the heart, and say, the people you're watching, those women you're watching, they are somebody's daughter, and they're being exploited. They're being taken advantage by men who probably didn't have a good father figure, who don't know how to treat women. And now there's women who probably didn't have a good father as well, not knowing how they should be treated. And they're feel like they're fulfilling this need of attention and money and glory and, fame. And you are watching a sexually exploited daughter. Could you imagine if somebody were to do that to your daughter? Now, I think there's some people who are calloused enough, it wouldn't faze them, but they're the minority. So, I know sometimes, because I'm a man, and sometimes if I start to have a thought of looking at a woman at the wrong way, I try to picture them as a little girl, and I picture them as somebody's daughter. And that is such a powerful shift. It does a 180 in your brain. So the more a father engages with his daughter and starts to develop that healthy relationship. In fact, we know this from research that the opposite of addiction is connection, not just sobriety. So you build up that connection with your daughter. I think it has a double-barreled effect where you're building a connection with another person and you don't feel like you need to bond with porn. And if you're looking at women in pornography, you start thinking about, this is somebody's daughter. That has a pretty powerful effect on men.
Absolutely. I could talk to you all day, Tim, but we've got to wind this up. So much beauty and depth. But just lastly, again, I was inspired by your slogan, dads kill porn. You say that porn can kill dads, but then you put out the challenge with your t-shirt, hey, how about dads kill porn? What are ways in which our dads can be a part of killing porn in society, in their own life, but in society as well?
Well, that's a great question. One way is the more fathers we get involved, and father figures, because I realize I'm not naive about this, that we can all of a sudden wave a magic wand and all of a sudden fathers who are estranged from their daughters can just repair their relationships and all the damage is solved. But if we can there's a lot of relationships that can be healed. There's a lot of fathers who are kind of involved, who are maybe a little bit aloof. That can be strengthened through really good fatherhood classes. There's a lot of organizations that do it well. And we find in the research, we find that dads are the most reluctant to go to parenting classes. It's like 90% moms, and dads you have to pull them by their feet and screaming. Well, maybe not that, but some of them are that way. But there are programs that have learned how to reach fathers. And if we can get those programs, they're more involved. They're feeling less desire to look at porn, the more they feel connected to their spouse and to their daughter. Now you have daughters growing up who don't feel they need to exploit themselves. And I think a lot of them don't even realize they're exploiting themselves. They allow themselves to be exploited. Honestly, I just think it's, they're uninformed, and they've been given a script, if you will, that is toxic, and they just don't realize it. So if you have less and less daughters who are allowing themselves to be exploited, then who's the porn industry going to get to come in? You're going to get less and less takers to go in, and then you're going to have less and less consumers of porn, because if we can get dads feeling like, and this is one of the worst things you can do to men who are consuming porn, and women, but porn consumers, if you shame them to death and tell them when I say that's somebody's daughter, I try not to say that in a shameful way, like, how dare you exploit? I try to appeal to their humanity rather than telling them they're a terrible person. If we can help them realize that the dads are of worth, the ones who are looking at porn, and because you're of worth and of value, we build a connection with you, and a connection of love and a forgiveness. You will help more men overcome their pornography viewing, we can help more men be engaged with their daughters' lives, less men who are going to be exploiting girls, whether they're in the porn industry or sex trafficking, and less girls who are willing to be exploited. And this, I think this can happen at all levels. You see minor, I don't hate to say it minor, but less serious levels of exploitation, just like on a college campus. If you see a guy, and I'll say this to my male students, if you're seeing a classmate, she's a female, and you're thinking of, how can I ask her out on a date so I can make out with her and then, go farther and farther, you are not thinking about her, you are thinking about yourself. And that, if you follow that pattern, you're not going to have a healthy marriage, because you can't just flip the switch all of a sudden and say, I'm married now I'm about love instead of lust. So that's another thing we do, is we've got to teach the difference between love and lust, selflessness and selfishness. But I really think dads can kill porn if they can understand all those things, and we can increase father figures, increase father involvement for all those reasons.
Yeah.
So.
Great. It's easy.
No, I have a lot of more tangible, practical ideas, but I'm kind of giving a 30,000-foot view, so
absolutely.
I apologize.
And we've certainly put a lot of practical ideas at work in our city and seen at work, and that's why I'm so passionate about it. And I don't want to miss that part of fighting the sexualisation of women battle, because we can get sidetracked, but we've got to bring in and champion the good males and get them involved as much as well. So thank you, Tim. You're certainly a champion in that space, and just really appreciate your time. I know it's late over in the States for you, so thank you for giving up your table tennis game with your children.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been an honor, and I really appreciate what you're doing, and just keep rocking. That you're doing amazing things.
Yeah, no, God bless. Thank you.